They sat in a booth in a South Philadelphia diner in the fall of 1998, discussing life in the underworld, the scams, the shakedowns, the money made, and the money lost. The key, Johnny Ciancaglini said, was to keep a low profile. Just make yourself a little scarce. That's what I do. I mean, I'm there if anybody needs me, but I try to be as scarce as I can. I mean, you'll knock 20–30% of your problems out. Ron Previty nodded in agreement. They had been talking for about 20 minutes, ironing out a problem that went back 5 years, to the day when Previty and another wise guy had taken 10 grand from a bookmaker who was with Ciancaglini. Johnny Chang, as Ciancaglini was known in certain circles, was in jail at the time, doing 7 years on an extortion rap. The bookmaker and the action he had on the street had been Chang's sole source of income, and the shakedown had a direct impact on him. After he gave you the 10, he folded up, Chang said. My income was dead out. He folded up and went to Florida. I mean, that hurt me big time because that let all my income go. They were drinking coffee, sitting in a booth in the Oregon Diner, a popular no-frills veal parmigiano with soup and salad kind of joint that has been operating on the corner of 3rd Street and Oregon Avenue for as long as anyone can remember. John Ciancaglini was a South Philly guy. He was 44 at the time and was making a comeback after his stint in prison. Solidly built, with thick black hair and rugged good looks, he had both the pedigree and the background to be a player. His father, Joseph Chicky Ciancaglini, was a mob capo doing 35 years on a racketeering conviction. Johnny also had 2 brothers who had given blood for the organization. One was dead, the other was crippled. Considered both street-smart and intelligent, John Ciancaglini knew how to make money. More important, he knew how to survive. So did the guy sitting across from him in the Oregon Diner. Big Ron Previty, a 6-foot, 300-pound wise guy, could grind it out with the best of them, had been doing it for years. An ex-cop and one-time casino security worker, Previty, who was 55, had made several $1,000,000 even before he was formally initiated into the organization. Drugs, prostitution, extortion, gambling, loan sharking, you name it, he did it. He knew the business of the underworld inside out. In fact, there were many who believed that the only reason Previty was still alive was because of his uncanny ability to come up with cash. And anyone who looked at things realistically would have agreed. The fact of the matter was that on November 2nd, 1998, the day he was sitting in the Oregon Diner drinking coffee with John Ciancaglini, Ron Previty should have been dead. Or in jail. Logic and common sense told you as much. But logic and common sense were in very short supply in the Philadelphia underworld at that time. Previty had been a soldier under mob boss John Stanfa during the bloody war that rocked the Philadelphia underworld in the early 1990s. The Stanfa organization clashed with a group of young mobsters headed by Joseph Skinny Joey Merlino and Michael Mikey Chang Ciancaglini, John Ciancaglini's youngest brother. Adding another twist to the story was the fact that Stanfa's underboss was Joseph Ciancaglini Jr. Joey Chang was the middle brother in the family. From 1992 to 1994, the streets of South Philadelphia were a battleground, as teams of hitmen stalked one another in a struggle for control of the organization. The battle lines were both cultural and generational. Stanfa, who was in his 50s, was an old-school Sicilian-born mob boss who was more at home on the streets of Palermo than in South Philadelphia. Merlino and Mike Ciancaglini, both in their early 30s, were flamboyant young wise guys, street-corner gangsters. The war ended with a half-dozen people dead and with Stanfa and most of his top associates in jail. By the time Previty met with Johnny Chang at the Oregon Diner in 1998, though, that was all in the past. Now it was time to mend fences. The sit-down was arranged to smooth over any hard feelings Johnny Chang still harbored after the shakedown of Chang's bookie. Bygones were bygones, Merlino had said when he set up the meeting. Previty, who had been with Stanfa during the war, was now with Skinny Joey. Or so everyone thought. Through it all, in fact, Ron Previty had been with the FBI. A confidential informant of the highest order, he was wearing a body wire as he sat in the diner that afternoon. The conversation with Johnny Chang was one of more than 400 he recorded during a 2-year period that began in February 1997 and ended in June 1999.